Good evening. While making use of my time here at the book gallery located at 647 South Billwood Street, Greenville, Mississippi, we are open, and I'd like to share a little bit of The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. And this is a review from the Los Angeles Times, and it reads, "The warmth of other suns is epic in its reach and in its structure, told in a voice that echoes the magic cadence of Toni Morrison or the folk wisdom of Zora Neale Hurston's collected oral history. Wilkinson's book pulls not just the expanse of the migration into focus, but its overall impact on politics, literature, music, sports, in the nation and the world. Wilkinson has logged not just the dates and figures that make these stories fact and thus formal history. She's made indelible the fading music of these stories, the dance of their speech patterns, the intricate chemistry of folk cures and cornbread rendered from scratch, beyond the family china or a great mother's wedding ring. There was always the ambient fear that these stories were actually the most fragile pieces in the hope chest, the easiest to go missing. What she's done with these oral histories is store away memory in amber." Isabel Wilkerson won the 1994 Pulitzer Prize for feature writings for her reporting as Chicago bureau chief of the New York Times. The award made her the first Black woman in the history of American journalism to win for individual reporting. She won the George Polk Award for her coverage for the Midwest and John Simon Guggenheim Fellowship for her research into the Great Migration. She has lectured on narrative writing at the Nieman Foundation at Howard University and has served as Ferris Professor of Journalism at Princeton University and as the James M. Cox Professor of Journalism at Emory University. She's a current Professor of Journalism and Director of Narrative Nonfiction at Boston University. During the Great Migration, her parents journeyed from Georgia and Southern Virginia to Washington, D.C., where she was born and reared. And this is her first book. Part 1, which deals with leaving. The night clouds were closing in on the Salt Licks east of the Oxbow Lakes, along the foes in the earth beyond the Yallabusha River. The cotton was at least cleared from the field. Ida Mae tried not now to get the children ready and to gather the clothes and quilts and somehow keep her mind off the churning within her. She had sold off the turkeys and doled out in secret the old stews, the wash pots, the tin tub, the bed pallets. Her husband was settling with Mr. Ed over the worth of a year's labor, and she did not know what would come of it. None of them had been on a train before. Not unless you counted the clattering local from Bacon Switch to Okolona, where by the time you sit down, you're there. As Ida Mae put it, none of them had been out of Mississippi, or Chickasaw County for that matter. There was no explaining to Lil James and Velma the stuffed bags and chaos and all that was at stake, or why they had to put on their shoes and not cry and bring undue attention from anyone who might happen to see them leaving. Things had to look normal, like any other time they might ride into town, which was rare enough to begin with. Velma was 6. She sat with her ankles crossed and 3 braids in her hair and did what she was told. James was too little to understand. He was 3. He was upset at the commotion. Hold still now, James. Let me put your shoes on, Ida Mae told him. James wriggled and kicked. He did not like shoes. He ran free in the field. What were these things? He did not like them on his feet, so Ida Mae let him go barefoot. Miss Thiene stood watching. One by one, her children had left her and gone up north. Sam and Cleve to Ohio, Josie to Syracuse, Irene to Milwaukee. Now the man Miss Thiene had tried to keep Ida Mae from marrying in the first place was taking her away too. Miss Thiene had no choice but to accept it and let Ida Mae and the grandchildren go for good. Miss Thiene drew them close to her, as she always did whenever anyone was leaving. She had them bow their heads. She whispered a prayer that her daughter and her daughter's family be protected on the long journey ahead in the Jim Crow car. May the Lord be the first one in the car, she prayed, and the last out. When the time had come, Ida Mae and Lil James and Velma and all they could carry were loaded into a brother-in-law's truck, and the 3 of them went to meet Ida Mae's husband at the train depot in Okolona for the night ride out of the bottom land. And that's an excerpt from The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. I encourage you to read it. If you would like to have it, the bookstore, the book gallery can get it for you. Thank you and goodbye.